Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, good morning to you, or good evening, depending on where you're watching the show. You know, we're rebroadcast every day on America's Voice News along their streaming channel. We're on their Facebook page in the morning. Howdy, how are you? But we're broadcast along their streaming channel, Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV. Download your free app on your Android or your iPhone. If you're looking for an alternative news site, you couldn't do better than America's Voice News. We're also on channel 219 Dish Network and the Pluto channel, and more are in the works. All right, we got a great show for you today. I got to give you a little caveat right up front here. You're not really going to like the content of today's show. And by that, I don't mean the delivery of it and what we're talking about. I'm talking about the stories that I believe we got to report on. You're not going to like it. I don't like it either. And sometimes, the news, sometimes you look at it and you just go, man, there's nothing I really want to talk about. Now, need to talk about is a different thing. And I think you'll see what I'm talking about here in just a moment. But the first thing we got right out the gate, Republicans cave in Detroit. In Wayne County, the canvassing board caved into pressure and voted to certify the elections, even though there's all kind of evidence and speculation and certainly circumstantial evidence and real evidence of voter fraud and intimidation of poll workers and everything in between. In Detroit, in Wayne County, the two members of the board, the canvassing board, Republicans caved in and joined the Democrats to certify the votes with a few stipulations, and we'll get into that in just a moment. And then one thing has come out now, we're still picking up House seats in Congress, but it's pretty clear that the Democrats are going to hold on to the House, barely, but hold on enough that Speaker Pelosi is going to return as Speaker, and we'll tell you all about that. And maybe a few other tidbits as we go along. But before we go any further, I got to mention Big Daddy Unlimited, our sponsor. We come to you live every day, Monday through Friday here, 8 o'clock Eastern time, on Facebook networks and our YouTube channel. That's something that, if you're looking for an alternative to Facebook, right now we're still doing pretty well on YouTube. Who knows what the future holds? Spell it all the way out, John Martin Talks. Please like it, share it, listen to us on YouTube. We could use some more listeners there. But Big Daddy Unlimited is all things Second Amendment. They're our sponsor. No matter where you're watching or when you're watching the show, look above the video and you will see a show description of the topics. Scroll on that and you will see a link to our sponsor, Big Daddy Unlimited, where you will absolutely get factory direct pricing straight to your door on anything Second Amendment related: guns, ammunition, tactical gear, thousands of items, including swag. Check it out. You can even buy t-shirts. Now, this particular shirt that I have on today is from Patriot Threads. They are friends of the show, and if we're going to be doing a giveaway on some shirts next week, so stay tuned for that. But if you've never checked out Patriot Threads, check them out. They are literally a dad and son operation, and they do charity work for veterans group. You're not going to find a better, their name says it all, Patriot Threads. Check them out. All right, into the story, and this is from a Breitbart story. Wayne County, which is the county that Detroit, Michigan is in, Wayne County reverses decision, certifies disputed election results as video goes dark. When they say video, they're talking about the event was live streamed on one of those services, which I'm trying to think of which one it is. Zoom, I think it was Zoom. And somebody told me that Zoom was actually controlled by Communist China. I don't know. They control about everything else. But apparently during the crucial time when they took the deciding vote, which turned out to be unanimous, that the Zoom mysteriously disappeared in Detroit. Now, I'm sure it's just a coincidence, Wayne County, Michigan canvassing reversed course late Tuesday night and voted to certify the results from the November 3rd election, which have been disputed. Now, understand, the overall election in Michigan has yet to be certified. This is the way to, every state is a little bit different, but basically you have county certifications of elections, and then they pass that on through the Secretary of State, and then you have a state certified of elections. Every state is slightly different, but that is in general how it happens. And at the moment, we have counties certifying election through canvassing boards, and then the state will ultimately, which has not happened, but a big area where President Trump was hoping to change some votes or overturn some invalid ballots and all kind of shenanigans, which we know, and I'll show you some in just a moment, that happened in Michigan and certainly in Detroit. All the major cities is where you had your major problems, like Philadelphia, Detroit, Atlanta, those kind of things. It is a blow to the president. There's just no other way to put it. Now, does it mean that his chances have diminished? Not necessarily so. I wasn't thinking that Wayne County's canvassing board was going to go the president's way to start with. But it is definitely a blow to the president. There's no doubt about it. Does it derail his legal? No. I still believe the president has an opportunity to still win, and we've talked about that. Now, one thing I want to say right here, because, I mentioned yesterday and the day before, I've talked a little bit about, I do believe that the president's chances of getting I believe he won the election. Let me just put it out. Let me start this way. I believe President Trump won the election. I do believe that the election has been stolen from him. Now, will they ultimately prevail? I don't know. There is no guarantee that they won't, though. Cheaters do win sometimes. We've seen that before. Now, will it stand? There's all kind of speculation. But I think that, and maybe I'm defending myself, but I think it's unfair to bash people that are on your side. I mean, I am 100%, I am a Trump chump. But I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't tell you what I see and and how I feel about things honestly. You wouldn't respect me if I didn't. So I think that the president has a shot, but time is ticking. There is no question about it. I have all the faith in the world in Sidney Powell. I do. But we have to understand, and here's the thing, we need to fight as hard as we possibly can for President Trump, no matter what. But at the same time, we have to make a choice that what happens if President Trump doesn't prevail? Or, even if he does prevail, which I'm praying, hoping, and working hard for that to happen. But even if he does prevail, he's only got one more term, right? Even if he runs again in 2024, if he doesn't prevail, he's still only got one term. So at some point, either soon or hopefully 4 years later, or maybe 8 years later, the president's term will end. It's just the way it is. And so we have to make a decision. That doesn't mean we don't fight, we don't pray, we don't do everything possible to help President Trump. He deserves our support. He's fought hard for us. We got to fight hard for him. But if we don't think about what would happen post-President Trump, does the movement just die? Does the MAGA agenda go away? Does America First no longer exist? Because if that's true, then it was doomed to failure no matter what, because you cannot put all of your eggs in the basket of one person. Now, Trump is a mighty, mighty man. I'm not denying that. But at the end of the day, as Charles de Gaulle says, and you have to understand when I say this, President de Gaulle of France once said when he was retiring, and he was famously asked, what is France going to do without you? He said, the graveyard is full of indispensable men. I mean, we stand on the shoulder of giants, and Donald Trump, I believe, no matter what happens, is going to go down in history as one of the greatest presidents, if not the greatest president we've ever had. But it can't be totally based on him. He's even said that himself. So when I tell you these things, I'm on your side, but I'm simply trying to give you something to think. I'm trying to give us some backbone and realize that we can't just, because it's very tempting with all that is happening, and this story is right in the middle of it. it's very tempting to just go home. But if we do that, we lose it all. And I am not going home. I'm not getting back into pot, as I keep telling you. If you're new to the show, you might not know it. Go back and look at our podcast. Check us out on YouTube. Spell it out. John Martin Talks. But what happened last night? Well, what happened is bipartisanship. That's what happened. And if you're new to the show, you might not have heard this, but if I say it, it bears repeating. Bipartisanship, I know what it's supposed to mean. It's supposed to mean the Republicans and the Democrats work together for the common good, that put their differences aside. I know what it means, but that's not what's happening and hasn't been for decades. Bipartisanship in reality always means Republicans cave into Democrats. That's what it means. And you're going to see more of this. You just don't expect the Republican, especially if Donald Trump does not prevail. God help us. I don't want that to happen. But if he doesn't prevail, you better get used to it, because Republicans will be scrambling for bipartisanship, even if they hold on to the Senate. That's just the way they are. And there's a solution for that. And I'm going to get into that as we go. But bipartisanship, Republicans cave. I keep putting this challenge out there. Chime in and let me know. Can you give me an example where Republicans were for something? Doesn't matter what it is. Democrats were adamantly opposed to it, but the Democrats finally saw the light and caved into the Republicans. I can't find one. There may be one, but I can't. There's numerous of Republicans over the years. The Board of Canvassing, back to Wayne County, which is Detroit, Michigan, the Board of Canvassers had originally voted 2-2 along party lines. So there were 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans. Each county, state, they do it a little bit different. The tie meant the election results were not certified. So they took a vote, at least one vote, maybe more, and they didn't certify the election. So what happened? Well, let me explain it to you. It said, but later in the night, and I don't know if I told you this was a Breitbart article or not. I meant to. It's I got to give them credit where credit is due. But later in the night, the Republican canvassers flipped and voted with the Democrats while the live stream was down. So the Zoom thing went down. When it popped back up, the Republicans had flipped. They flip-flopped. They caved. That's what they did. And I want to show you something. It's not this video we've played before. If you haven't seen it, you need to. This goes back to the vote counting in Michigan after the November 3rd election, when people, Republicans and others, were trying to see what was happening. This shows you what they're all about in Detroit, Michigan. Check it out. I think you get the picture. They're literally boarding up the windows there. Those are in that, it's a big like convention center, and they're counting votes, literally counting the votes, not recounting, counting the votes for the first time. And we're supposed to be able to see that. And they put boards up to keep you from seeing it. So so the Zoom went out last night. Basically, you couldn't see what happened. So what are they trying to hide in Michigan? Transparency doesn't seem to exist, Oh, it's for the people. Yeah, as long as you're for them. What is it they don't want us to see? Let me just tell you, rat. Let me talk a little bit about rats. Sometimes I feel like I'm an exterminator. Let me tell you a story about rats. Because let me get into this real quick. About the whole Facebook, Google, Twitter, all that hearings yesterday. People keep asking, when's something going to happen? Now, the Republicans showed up pretty good there. Josh Hawley, Ted Cruz, even Lindsey Graham. They did a good job, especially Josh Hawley. I'm becoming a bigger fan of his by the day. But he mentioned subpoenaing the records from Facebook about the collusion. The biggest news that came out of that yesterday is something we kind of suspected all along, but Josh Hawley proved it right there in the Senate and got Zuckerberg to admit it. Google, which is also YouTube, Facebook and Twitter are working in cahoots. They are actually working literally together to censor conservative voices. They are. And I say that with all due deference to algorithm. We're under a lot of pressure here through Facebook. I mean, and we're going to get on other sites. We are. So I keep telling you, recommend sites to me. We're working on it. We're going to get on multiple sites. But we can't abandon the number one public square at the same time. I think that would be caving in and turning. And I believe that people need voices of conservatives on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube and Google more than ever. So we can't just turn tail and run. I don't have a problem with expanding our reach, but I think we got to stand and fight no matter what. Because until something changes, that, you know, these big tech giants are the public square now. Whether it's right or wrong, it's reality, and I'm just telling you. But so Josh Hawley actually got Zuckerberg to admit to some of this working together, and then he went into a series of questioning him about whether he would commit to turning over the list of websites and individuals and groups that were basically talked about by this, I forget the name of the software or program they were using, but to communicate between the three big tech giants in conjunction with banning people and curtailing their content and all that. Would he give a list of that? And of course, Zuckerberg hemmed and hawed. Let me tell you, and that's why I wanted to keep this rats picture. I appreciate Billy Bob here, by the way. He helps me. He's my psychic sidekick. You got a Twitter handle. It's at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. But the rats, because Josh Hawley said, well, we could subpoena the records from you. Let me just tell you why I don't talk about some of these stories, why I don't talk about the Joe Biden crime syndicate, the Hillary Clinton, all that stuff, because I just don't believe the rats are going to convict the rats. I don't believe it. Until I see it, I want to see the perp walk. I want to see them with the coat on and the hands behind. I want to see that, God, as much as anybody, man. I would love to be reporting on that right now. And a lot of shows talk about that for all the time, and they get your hopes up. My hopes, you know, come and go and ebb and flow when it comes to that. But at the bottom line, until I see the rats convict the rats, and I'm talking about Republicans and Democrats, because see, one thing about presidents, they come and go. They just do. Good ones, bad ones, what? They come and go. They got 8 years, that's it. These senators like Mitch McConnell, I might talk about him more in a little bit, they're up there forever. They're basically like almost like the Supreme Court. They never leave. And they don't want to convict the rats because they're worried about getting in the rat trap the next time. And until I see, let me tell you, I got a quick story I got to tell you. When I was younger, we used to have a cattle ranch, and we had this barn that had all the feed in it. And the rats would get in there and eat on the cattle feed, right? And we'd do all kind of things, try to eliminate them, but they just kept coming back. So I would go in the daytime, and you could hear them in there sometimes. Well, I would bang on the barn door, boom, 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 because if I banged on it, they all went away. I couldn't see them. They were still there, but I couldn't see them because they don't like the light of day, you know. So I learned a long time ago all about rats, and I can tell you that rats don't like the light shined on them, and they always hang together. They always hang together, and that's what's happening in D.C. The swamp rats are real, and you can hear the gurgling sound of the swamp trying to fill back up in anticipation of Donald Trump not prevailing. I'm not saying he's not prevailing. I'm just telling you what's happening in D.C. All right, back to this story. The Detroit News reported after hours of angry responses from Wayne County residents, they weren't all residents, by the way, the change in course was approved by 2 Republican and 2 Democratic canvassers, Republicans caved, with the demand that the Secretary of State's office conduct a comprehensive audit of precincts with unexplained out-of-balance tallies. Well, don't hold your breath on that. I mean, I hope it happens. But the audit should have happened first, right? Before you certify the results, even if you put a, quote, stipulation on them, they don't think that holds much water. The audit should have happened first. Do you really believe that now that they've got it passed, they're just going to shove that little request under the table? I hope I'm wrong, but I'm usually not. You know, oftentimes, believe it or not, I hope to be wrong a lot. I am wrong occasionally, but not too often. And I wish I was wrong more, because a lot of the things I'm right about, I don't wish them to happen. It's not clear if the approval was conditional on the comprehensive audit or if the investigation was merely requested. What's clear to me is nothing's going to be done about it. Now, does that mean that the president doesn't have a case in Michigan? No. And does that mean that I don't believe in Sidney Powell and her ability to expose this Dominion software and all that kind of stuff? I got a lot of faith, as I told you, in Sidney Powell. But the reality is, until we get this thing until it happens, at this moment, they are chipping away at the president's chances day to day. That's what they're doing. And here's the other thing, ladies and gentlemen. And I guess, again, maybe I'm defending myself. But if you want to know what you can do, there's a couple of things you can do. One, and I've already done a lot of this myself, you can donate a little bit of money to the President's Defense Fund. Maybe donate to that runoff in Georgia, or maybe wait till later. At some point, we need to worry about that. You could volunteer at your local. If you're in one of these swing states that are where the election is still being fought out and disputed, contact your local Republican Party and volunteer. They're going to need people to watch what's happening. Maybe actually count the votes as well. But they got to have people. So you need volunteers. You need money. I haven't said this in a while, but it certainly does bear repeating. I think as an activist citizen, now everybody can't donate hundreds of thousands and tens of thousands of dollars, right? But you need to budget politically. If, let's say, you can say, okay, this election cycle, I can donate $100. You could, and if it's $20, it's $20. But if, let's just use $100, you might donate it to one person, like Donald Trump. Or you might pick and choose and say, give 50 to Donald Trump and then 10 or 20 to local and regional candidates, and maybe even people running in other states, that kind of thing. But you need to have a political budget, even if it ain't but $20, proportionate to what you can afford to. And you need to volunteer and get active. We need people. We had a board meeting last night of the local Republican Party, and I can tell you, this is happening all over the country. One of the hardest things, and I'm not trying to beat people up, I'm just giving you the facts. One of the hardest things is to get people to do something constructive. Organize things like door knocking, phone calling, stuffing ballots, or mail-in stuff, not ballots, but that's what the Democrats do. Sorry, slip of the tongue there, Freudian. That's what they do. But stuffing envelopes, contacting people, just helping in any way, emailing, whatever you can do. Because believe me, I'm all for Trump rallies. I love them. I've been to at least 4 or 5 of them. I love the boat parades here. I love the convoy, the trucking, the highway thing. And all those people, it's great. It's fantastic. But we still need people to knock on doors. We still need people to work fairs and festivals to get people registered to vote. And we're going to need all of that. We need people right now to help with these recounts and whatever. So if you're local in that area, or if you can volunteer, donate, do so. If you sit back and just, excuse my French, bitch and moan, nothing will happen. Nothing will happen. So I'm trying to give you solutions for you and for some of your friends. It's a lot less frustrating if you're actually doing something. But so to me, it's clear that nothing would be done. And I don't mean to get cynical, but perhaps those in Michigan that are on lockdown right now, that are going to keep being locked down until you get rid of your governor there. And of course, some Republican governors are caving into the pandemic as well. But while you're sitting at home alone for Thanksgiving, maybe you got time on your hands, you could do something. Or how about if, God help us, Joe Biden actually becomes president of the United States? God help us with that. Well, then you're going to have a lot of time on your hand in places like Michigan, because you're probably going to be out of work, contrary to what they're talking about, because he's all about China. Anyway, I'm just telling you like I see it. Back to this article. This is what the William Hartman, who was one of the members of the Canvas Board, said. Once the Zoom came back on, he said, that passed unanimously, Republican member William Hartman said, and I'm only saying his name because he's outed here, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, said, when the video began functioning again, we just voted on that. Moments later, he said, we're going to adjourn, and the board ended its meeting around 9:08 p.m. Bipartisanship. Now, that's what it means, Republicans cave. But in fairness to these people, they're not really getting paid for this. I don't know these people at all. I'm not trying to pick on them because, everybody's got their own circumstances. And the fact that they would even put themselves on a canvassing board in a place like Detroit says a lot about them. But I want to play something here, a video for you in just a moment that shows what the left is all about. Now, I'm not saying that that those of us that are conservative Trump supporters need to mimic this thing. I don't believe it's personal attack. The left is all about personal attacks. But we better realize what we're up against. And the temptation for us is to go home, hang with our families, do the things we love. Eagles don't flock together too often. But maybe it's time we did. That's just the way it is. This guy right here is a guy named Ned Stabler, and he's a Twitter profile says he lives in Ann Arbor. Now, I heard this morning that he literally has his name. I don't know if it's officially changed. Now, he's a white dude. Keep this in mind. You'll understand why I say it in just a second. His middle name, or at least what he calls himself, is Ned Black Lives Matter Stabler. And he's from Ann Arbor, Michigan, a college town, kind of like, so he's probably very liberal. Not even on it. This is what he, during the Zoom portion where he could chime in, he said to these Republican canvassers. Check it out.
That millions of people around the world now on Twitter know the name Monica Palmer and William Hartman as two people completely racist and without an understanding of what integrity means or a shred of human decency. The law isn't on your side. History won't be on your side. Just know when you try to sleep tonight that millions of people around the world now on Twitter know the name.
Millions of people, when you try to sleep tonight, basically, we're outing you. We know where you live. He didn't quite say that, but trust me, they do. Think about the pressure of that. So you're there, you're volunteering, because these are voluntary positions. Now, they may be ardent Trump supporters. I don't know, so I'm not trying to pick on them. But they did cave. And maybe, if you think about it, if you're worried about when you see the left beating up women and children and old people in the streets of our nation's capital, for God's sakes, it's pretty tempting to say, hey, this is real. They're telling the world and they're pointing their finger at me. And of course, the cops don't come anymore, right? Where are the police? Now they're being bashed and hammered, and it's only going to get worse. God help us if Joe Biden prevails. There's no question about that. Police are under attack themselves. They are. There's no doubt about that. But you remember the McCloskeys. That's the couple in Missouri that defended themselves using their Second Amendment rights. Remember our sponsor, Big Daddy Unlimited. By the way, we here at John Martin Talks, in conjunction with Big Daddy Unlimited, I'm letting a little bit of the cat out of the bag, but we are determined to be the protector of your Second Amendment rights and other rights. And more about that will be revealed as time goes. A lot happening behind the scenes here. Hang in there with us. No matter what algorithm and his bunch do to us, hang in there, please. Share it, like us, check out our sponsor, all of that kind of stuff. But these people are under threat, man. Think about that. I mean, on the one hand, it bothers me that they cave to this, but on the other hand, I can somewhat understand it. It's not easy to stand up against, because this is an old playbook of the left. This is nothing new for them. It's just a different way of doing it. Back in the day, what the Democratic Party used to do a lot down here in the South, if you were a Republican, especially a black Republican, but if you were a Republican helping black folks here, people of color, I know this is a harsh truth for a lot of snowflakes out there, but I'm about to show you a picture of the very same thing that the Democratic Party used to do to intimidate black people and white folks. Look at that. A cross burning. This is what this dude did from Ann Arbor, Michigan. He's literally, what is the difference between burning a cross in someone's yard and doing what he did via Twitter last night? I don't see the difference. Please tell me where the difference. Now, I know you're not supposed to show images like this, and we'll go ahead and move along from that one. But that's what's happening today. That's what the left has always done. And if you don't believe me, the left is formed the Ku Klux Klan. You've been lied to if you believe that the Democratic Party is the party of civil rights, because they're not. They are absolutely not. And one of the reasons why they tear down statues around the country is they don't want black people, for instance, to have any pride in America whatsoever. But do a little bit of research while you still can on DuckDuckGo, because Google is of the devil, I'm just saying. But this is right out of what that dude did to those two Republicans last night is straight out of the playbook of the Democratic Party of old. You know, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Do you think I'm being over dramatic about this? Do you really? Because about cross burning and all that kind of stuff. I want to show you a clip that we've played before, but it certainly bears replaying. This is from a neighborhood, I want to say it's either in Seattle or Portland. I do not remember. It doesn't really matter. But it shows that they're willing to go right into your neighborhood and essentially intimidate you. Check it out. So that's good. Sorry about the language on that, but I'm just playing what they're actually saying. I think it's important to hear what they're really saying. Wake you heard what they said, up. They're coming. They're coming to neighborhoods. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, the left is just getting started. If you're under any illusion, and I tried to make this case for the last few months, that the violence is going to end if Kamala Harris, followed by Joe Biden, take over 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, it ain't going to end. It's going to keep going. It's going to escalate. Because one thing about the left, they never, ever give up. Never. Will we? I hope not. No matter what happens, we cannot give up. Because if we give up, we neither live nor win. America dies. Now, we could go, what is that scene from that Mel Brooks movie? Yeah, you could go home and die peacefully in your bed. I wish I could play things like that anymore, but it's all copyright stuff. We can't. I can just repeat it. Yeah, you could go home, but what would you give for one moment to fight for your freedom? Because that is what we're in for right now. I hear people say it across the spectrum, and they're right. We are fighting for the soul of this nation. But we can't, it's important, and I appreciate you listening. Everybody cannot be a fighter, but everybody can support those of us in the fight. And I believe I'm in the fight. So keep supporting us. I appreciate it. So I don't want to beat up on you too much. But if you think we can just go back and act like none of this ever happened, no matter what happens with President Trump, and I'm with it, I want him to win. And he's got a shot. And he needs to keep fighting, and we need to keep fighting with him. And I told you how you can help. But at the end of the day, we got decisions to make whether we're going to stay in the fight no matter what. Because it's either worth fighting for or it's not. I mean, that's kind of... But in Joe Biden's America, man, they are just getting started. This next paragraph I want to read, I want you to keep this in mind. Listen to this next paragraph. Over 100 observers have filed... Now, before I say it, keep this in mind. That canvassing board voted to certify the election. I know they put a caveat in there about investigations. But before they certify the election, this is what's happening right there in their area. Over 100 observers have filed affidavits related to the vote counting process in Detroit. Several individuals have alleged ballots being counted multiple times, ballots arriving in the dead of night, which is probably why they stopped the vote counting at one point, and observers being blocked from watching the tabulation process. I showed you a video. But still they caved. They still caved no matter what. Bipartisanship. Republicans caved. It's going to get worse. The left is just getting started, as I say, and they never, ever stop. Here's the thing you have. It's one of my axioms. I have what they call axioms, truth. And this is one truth about progressives. They never stop. They can't be reasoned with. You can't compromise with them like the two did up there in Detroit, because they still coming after you no matter what. They've already labeled you. you're racist. It don't matter. You can be black and you're still racist if you don't drink the Kool-Aid and support them. You don't walk in lockstep. What Joe Biden said, you're not black enough if you don't vote for me. So it don't matter. If you don't walk lockstep in conjunction with these hardcore progressive leftists, then you are the enemy. Even if you don't vote or participate, you're still the enemy because you're not on their side. They don't allow passiveness. It's kind of like in football season. I've told this before, but if you go, and here's a little tidbit, you don't get anything outside the show, get this. If you go into the state of Alabama and they ask you, because it's Auburn and Alabama, right? Or Alabama and Auburn, whatever. I get myself in trouble. Congratulations to Coach Tuberville for winning that Senate seat. We needed that. But if you go into Alabama and you're traveling and someone asks you, well, who are you for? And they're expecting you to say either Auburn or Alabama. The one thing you can say, like I used to say, hey man, I'm a Gator. I'm a diehard Gator. They might rag you, but they accept that. The one thing you cannot say in the state of Alabama is, I don't care. It don't matter, because you got to care about it. You can be for somebody else, but you can't say it don't matter. It's the same thing in a way with the progressive left. You can't say I don't want to talk about politics, because if you're not with them, then you're against them. That's just the way it is, man. But, and it's just getting started. They never stop. And here's my axiom. I'm about to get Billy Bob, my psychic sidekick, says, get on back to the story. Well, let me just tell you about progressives. They can't be reasoned with. They can't be dealt with. They can't be negotiated with this. I think President Trump has figured that out a while back. The only thing you can do with progressives is to defeat them. Defeat them at the ballot box. Period. That's the only thing. You can't reason. I'm just telling you. I wish it were true, but you just can't. But we have some decisions. Let me check my time. Got a few minutes left. We have some decisions to make, ladies and gentlemen. We have to decide if we're going to man the political ramparts no matter what. Are we in this fight for the long haul? Because Donald Trump prevailing or not prevailing doesn't matter in this sense. It was never going to be about just 1 or 2 terms to drain the dadgum swamp. This thing is about what it says right there in that meme. Freedom versus tyranny. Not Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. They're just the two at the top of the ticket. And I'm not downplaying the president. But the reality is we have to make a commitment that we're going to stay in this fight until we win or lose. Because if we don't, we're guaranteed to lose, because the left is never, ever going to give up. Do you really expect, if God help us, if Joe Biden wins, I always have to caveat that, do you think, I hope you're not one of these people that is holding out hope that the Republicans are going to investigate him and all that. I don't see that happen. The rats don't convict the rats. They don't. And Republicans are at the top of the rat list in some, because I expect it from the Democrats. And I know, because I've seen how the sausage is made, that rats are rats. It don't really matter. But if you're holding out hope that somehow the Republicans are going to grow a big backbone and go after Zuckerberg and his bunch, or go after Joe Biden should he actually prevail, don't hold your breath, man. That's all I can say. But we've got to clean house ourselves. We can't give up, because if we do, we neither, as old Clint Eastwood said in Josie Wells, if you give up, you neither win nor live. It's just the way it is. All right, we're going to move on to another story, and this is another one that I wish I wasn't reporting on. But I got a job to do. Some of us make sacrifices. This is a Politico story. Democrats jockey for leadership post after election drubbing. In other words, they got beat worse than they thought. They lost House seats, and they're still losing them. They're not going to lose enough, unfortunately, it doesn't look like, for the Republicans to prevail. But there is a glimmer of hope in there, and we need to not, once we get past 2020, we need to focus on 2018. We can't rest a minute, because trust me, we got to focus on that runoff in Georgia for sure. And we'll see all kinds of shenanigans in Georgia. We'll talk about that in the coming days. So there's Queen Pelosi, man. Nancy Pelosi and her top deputies aren't going anywhere. Matter of fact, they're running unopposed. She is unopposed. Can you imagine that? She is unopposed in the leadership there. Nancy Pelosi and her top deputies aren't going anywhere, but the House leadership elections that began this week are likely to reveal the future of the caucus long ruled by the same triumphant. Nancy Pelosi, let me tell you, she's getting ready though. She's getting ready for her anointment or whatever, bestowing the crown upon her. We saw this before. Nancy Pelosi is getting ready. Remember this video? There she is, the maskless wonder, violating her own rules and regulations out there. Now think about it. She's 80 dadgum years old. I hope to get there myself. I'll be 60 next week, and we'll talk about that another time. But I hope to get to 80 and beyond. As long as I can keep fishing and talking on here, I want to keep going as long as I can. But she knows that she is supposed to be in the comorbidity thing, her age and all that. They don't believe half the stuff they preach, if not any of it. She shows it by her own thing. She's getting ready. So when you're alone on Thanksgiving in Michigan or California because you're under lockdown there, remember that Nancy Pelosi don't care. You know, she's out there, man. And think about this. This is another question we got. Are we going to resist all of this lockdown that's coming? I hadn't really talked about it. I'm probably going to leading into Thanksgiving, but resistance is futile. We're being assimilated. That's another reason not to give up, because if we don't man the political ramparts, they're just going to assimilate us. It don't matter what you believe sometimes. It's what you do. You know, I used to work in a drug treatment center, and, you know, in these 12-step groups and all, they got, I think the second step is something I came to believe in a power greater than myself. Came to believe. See, I used to tell my clients in there, I don't really care what you believe, because I'm more interested in what you're willing to do. Because to me, and this is just my own thing, and you may or may not agree with it. If I go back to a drug addict alcoholic, I used to work with a lot of them, and I still do, kind of just voluntarily. So if you got a problem with that, you let me know. If I can help you, tell you my story a little bit, help, I will. I'm always willing to help people that are seeking help. But I used to tell my clients all the time, because I'd had these people that come in and they're just jailhouse preachers, man. They have got the faith and they just keep on preaching and they keep drinking and drugging. And I used to tell them all the time, give me a doer over a believer every time. Because a believer may never actually do anything, but a doer might actually come to believe at some point. But I take a doer. And that's what we need. I want people to pray and have faith, but do something. Do something. Remember that old joke? And there's an old joke if you hadn't heard this, and there's not much humor anymore. But you ever hear the one about the guy that was in the flood? The hurricane came, it's flooding, and it came by and a truck came by and said, hey man, the water's getting deeper. You better jump in here and get on board. And he said, no, I got faith that everything's going to be all right. Well, then the water came up beyond the windows and he got up on the roof, and a boat came by and said, guy says, man, you better jump in this boat, because if you don't, you might drown. The water's coming. He said, no, I got faith the Lord will provide. Then the next thing you know, he was on a chimney and a helicopter flew over and said, hey, you better grab this rope because the water's getting deeper. He said, no, I got the Lord going to provide. And then he drowned. And then he went before the Lord and says, Lord, I can't believe you let me drown. The Lord said, I didn't let you drown, man. I sent you a truck, a boat, and a helicopter. You just refused to get on board. And that may offend people. I don't know. But I'm just trying to make a little bit of light about this. We got to do. It's not enough to believe. We have to do. There's a book out there, something about faith without works is dead. We got to have some works. That's what's. So if you're wondering about Trump, yeah, pray for him. I'm with you. I pray for him all the time. At the end of the show, I always pray for him. But we got to do. We got to do. The 80-year-old California, talking about Miss Pelosi, Democrat, is expected to easily clinch her caucus nomination to be Speaker despite some internal grumblings about a disappointing election that significantly narrowed Democrats' House majority. Republicans are still picking up seats. Matter of fact, I want to congratulate someone right now. Burgess Owens. You've probably seen him on various shows and everything. Maybe get him on a show sometime. It just announced that he flipped that seat in Utah. So we have a staunch conservative in Burgess Owens, and he's a black man. Imagine that. But Republicans in a mostly white state of Utah voted for a black dude. I'm telling you, the Republican Party gets a bum rap on that. Certainly Donald Trump does. All right, we got a couple minutes left. Let's get into this. Anyway, let me get into this story at the very end here. I'm going to scroll all the way down because Pelosi, she's going to win, it looks like. And that's their fault, their problem. We need to do something about it come 2022, right? Mitch McConnell, I want to talk about him a minute. Mitch McConnell, this is an NBC News story, said there will be orderly transfer of power. Now, he hasn't come out and told Donald Trump to give up yet or anything. But these guys are waiting for they're okay with the Biden presidency. The swamp doesn't want to be drained, man. But let me read you this last little thing because it ties into a show we did yesterday. And this is what talking about bringing the boys home, bringing the gals home, bringing our troops home. This is what Mitch McConnell said just yesterday. He said, I think it's extremely important here in the next couple of months not to have any earth-shaking changes. Talking about bringing 2,500 troops home from Afghanistan and like 500 from Iraq. But we can't have any earth-shaking changes regards to defense and foreign policy, McConnell said. I think a precipitous drawdown in Afghanistan or Iraq would be a mistake. I so said publicly yesterday, and I hope that precisely where these decisions end up. We've been there for 2 decades. God almighty. Donald Trump is a promises made, promises kept. The rats don't like to convict the rats, and the swamp, you can hear it already filling up. The only thing that is going to stop that is you and me. Because I'll end the show with this. There is one person on this planet that the establishment of the Republican, Democratic Party, all that, fear more than Donald Trump. And that is you, the people that put him in office in the first place. They are terrified of us, and they are hoping and praying that we just go home and eat a chicken leg or a turkey dinner, whether we're by ourselves or not. I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook page, like it, share it with others. YouTube, spell it out, John Martin Talks. Remember our sponsor, Big Daddy Unlimited. But above all else, I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Let's all pray for this nation and our president because they both deserve it. But like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.